Living at home as an adult. With the current cost of living being what it is and renting with roommates or even without roommates being almost impossible, it's not too surprising that a lot of adults continue to live with their parents well into adulthood. That should be a good thing, right? Saving money while you get yourself professionally established. Well, it's ruining my life, that's for sure. Not to be dramatic or anything, but I often lie in bed at night imagining how much more exciting, fulfilling, and tolerable my life would be if I had my own place. Regardless of my endless yearning to have a place of my own, even as a 22-year-old who works full time, I still can't afford to move out. I do acknowledge that a lot of people live at home for very good reason, including myself, and I definitely don't think it should be seen as shameful, embarrassing, or as a personal failing. Obviously, this is heavily dependent on a lot of things, like your relationship with your parents, your physical living space, your job, your social life. I can definitely imagine a lot of situations where it would be enjoyable to live at home long term. That being said, living at home as an adult can suck. I've been living at home for about 2 years since I graduated from college, and I think I knew going into it that moving back home after living elsewhere would be a lot harder than if I had never left in the first place. You really don't have a chance to know what you're missing if you haven't lived alone before. I love my parents and I know I'm gonna miss them when I move out, but I'm the sort of person who can go a long time without speaking to other human beings, like at all, and be perfectly content. In fact, I really prefer it that way most of the time. In college, I had roommates, but they always had their own routines separate from mine and usually very different. We would always have different class schedules and we would always have different times or days that we would go home and visit our families. So every single day, I would have at least a couple hours alone in the room and even like a couple nights per week by myself. Now, I not only live with my family, but I also work with my family. So our schedules are basically exactly the same. There's maybe an hour or two, like once a week, that I'm home alone, and it really feels like the only time that I can actually breathe. It sounds pretty bad, but it's not that I dislike being around my parents. I just find it very exhausting to constantly be perceived by other people. Even when I'm in my room with my door closed, we have like pretty thin walls, so it's hard to feel like I'm never really able to actually relax. It probably explains why I stay up so late too. It's not like anyone's knocking on my door at 2 in the morning. Something else that's really difficult about living at home is that when I moved back home, I left all of the friends that I made in college that I was used to seeing every single day, like all day, every single day, in another city completely. At this point, all of the people that I hang out with are an hour or 2 hours away. So apart from trips and hangouts that we plan like maybe once a month, I'm either at work or in my room doing nothing. This is something that I know is a serious detriment to my mental health, but when everyone has their own work schedule and I have to pay for all that gas and do all that travel time, it's just not possible for us to see each other that much anymore. The only things that I really accomplish on a daily basis now are, one, endless doom scrolling, even as my own brain is yelling at me to stop because I can feel myself rotting more and more the longer I spend on my phone. And two, watching the same shows over and over again because they at least make me feel something. And inevitably feeling totally lost when I finish them yet again. What all of this amounts to is that outside of work, all of my time is spent in my room, doing nothing. My routine recently has been to come home from work, tell myself I'm going to take a 30-minute break, eat a snack maybe, then get to writing or painting or editing or quite literally anything that is remotely productive. But inevitably, it seems I end up sitting there in my chair for hours upon hours. Because really, honestly, I'm exhausted. Physically, emotionally, spiritually. I've spent the day doing a very physical job, being around people and making small talk, which is even more exhausting for me than manual labor. And for just about every single day of the last few years, I've managed to do absolutely nothing with my life other than work. I have dreams, lots of them. I have hobbies that I love that bring me personal fulfillment. But day after day, I can't seem to find the motivation to get up. Not to get too serious, but if you have a dream like I do with YouTube, and you have the tools, the time, the ability to achieve that dream, feeling yourself waste all this time not even starting on it, it builds up. It coalesces into this mass of wasted time behind you that makes you feel worthless. And worse than the time that you've already wasted, all of that disappointment and exhaustion convinces you every single night that when you go to sleep, tomorrow is going to be no different. And in the worst self-fulfilling prophecy ever, it never is different. I've been thinking a lot about what my life would look like if this went on forever. Maybe I am able to move out someday, just working whatever job I can get that will pay the rent. Even then, when I get that apartment that I've been dreaming of, if this is what awaits me every night when I come home from work, will I really be that much happier? It's pretty terrifying to realize that I probably wouldn't. That living completely passively as I do now will eventually just drown me. The predominant advice for dealing with difficult living situations is usually just to suffer through it. Like as if living with your parents for years, stunting your emotional growth, impacting your ability to feel like a real adult even when you do get the chance to move out on your own. Essentially watching years of your life going down the drain without anything particularly exciting happening, as if that doesn't have severely negative psychological effects, right? Just suffer through it. And all of that is one thing. Like, for someone like me who has a definitive move out date, I can't even imagine what it would be like to have to move home indefinitely and to not have like a light at the end of the tunnel yet, or if while living at home you have to summon the motivation to devote huge chunks of what is supposed to be your only relaxation time you have to grinding for a side gig or a second job to even be able to move out in the first place. Maybe moving out into a ridiculously expensive 4-bedroom place with 3 other roommates and struggling financially wouldn't be so bad after all.